Test 1, 2, 3. Recording in progress.
Okay, we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Jason, will you lead us in that? Thank you. To the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Jason. Okay, procedure for teleconferencing.
So we do the roll
Call,
call.
oh, we need to do the roll call, sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. This meeting is being held virtually and in person, so I'll do a roll call of all the trustees to confirm attendance. Ms. Martin?
Here.
Ms. Martinez? Ms. Mee? Okay. Ms. Durazo?
Present.
Mr. Green?
Present.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Ms. Ginsburg?
Here.
Staff participating in the meeting include Deputy CEO Louis Lugo, Assistant Executive Officers JJ Popowich and Laura Guglielmo, CIO John Gravel, Chief Audit Executive Richard Bendel, Chief Counsel Steve Rice, Senior Staff Counsel Allison Barrett. Internal Audit include Richard Bendel, Leisha Collins, Christina Logan, Nathan Amick, Gabriel Tafoya, George Lundy, Christina Sun, Christian Velasco, Delfino Aguilar, and all division managers. Audit Committee Consultant, Larry Jensen. Trustees, please use the raise your hand Zoom option to be placed in the queue. At this time, we ask all meeting participants to mute their mics until you're ready to speak. And now we may proceed with the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes from March 13th, 2025? I have to read this one?
No. There's a clause for this one.
Oh,
We received one request for from Ms. Trustee Martin for just cause B. Trustee, is she?
She's not in yet.
She's not in, okay.
Ms. Martinez.
Ms. Martinez. So we could go move forward to the next one.
okay. Do we revisit that when she pops on?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, back to the motion. Do we have a motion to move the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Ms. Moore, I'm sorry, Mr. Moore made the motion. Ms. Mee seconded. I'll make a roll call. Ms. Mee,
Yes.
Ms. Durazo,
Aye.
Mr. Green,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg,
Yes.
and Chair Martin.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. There's no public comment.
Okay, thank you. So then we're moving to item 6A, non-consent items. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay,
Good
thank
morning,
you.
Chair. Let me always just say a few words real quick.
Yeah.
Good morning, Chair Martin and trustees. We call this our 3-year roadmap to distinguish it from LACERA's strategic plan. But in essence, it is internal audit's long-range strategic plan. It was a requirement of the IAA prior to the revision of their standards and continues to be as part of the new global IAA internal audit standards. And while we received a generally conforms in our external quality assessment that was done in 2022, one of the recommendations they made and one of the gaps for us to continue our improvement was in developing that strategic plan. We also have that as one of our goals for this year. And Christina Logan and Tina Sun led the effort in the office to develop that roadmap. And we'll walk you through the development of that right now.
Can we progress to the next slide? Good morning, Chair Martin and ACRE committee members. I'm pleased to be here to present Internal Audit's roadmap for fiscal year ending 2026 through 2028. Next slide, Gabe. Before we jump into the more meatier part of the discussion, I wanted to talk about 3 things that I think might be questions you have. The first is, what is a roadmap? So Richard did Mr. Pendle did touch on this. We've named our internal audit strategic plan a roadmap to avoid confusion with LACERA's 2023 through 2028 strategic plan. You will see in your ACRE committee charter, as well as the internal audit charter, that we reference having a roadmap, a 3-year roadmap. The second question, why does internal audit need an internal audit strategic plan? So again, Mr. Bendel did touch on this, but the IIA, the Institute for Internal Auditors, has a new global standard that requires the chief audit executive to develop and implement a strategic internal audit plan that aligns with its organization. The third question is, what are the benefits of having an internal audit strategic plan? Whether it's a strategic plan for internal audit, a division, or an organization, a strategic plan helps you ask the right questions, assess your options for responding to those questions, and gets everybody on the same page so that we all know where we're going. To help us with the development of our internal audit roadmap, we reviewed the updated standards, the IIA's practice guide on developing an internal audit strategic plan. We attended various training sessions and researched how other internal audit shops were approaching this new requirement. Next slide. So the first phase of us developing our roadmap was to define our mission and vision. When we were looking at what our mission was, we wanted it to answer the question, what is internal audit's purpose for being? Why do we exist? The mission statement should align with both LACERA's mission and the IIA's purpose statement. It should reflect the current state of internal audit. The mission statement that we have is to provide independent assurance and advisory services that add value and improve operations. For our vision statement, we wanted it to give us direction on what we want to become. It should be aspirational and define how we intend to bring value to our stakeholders. Our vision statement is serving LACERA as a trusted and insightful advisor. Next slide. So for our second step, we looked at LACERA's strategic plan relative to internal audit, because internal audit should be contributing to the achievement of LACERA's objectives. We reviewed LACERA's strategic plan for 3 areas. The first, we wanted to see areas where we needed to gain a better understanding of knowledge or a topic. The second, areas that we currently have projects or work in. And the third were potential engagements that we intend to do in the next few audit plans. Next slide. For phase 3, we conducted a divisional SWOT analysis to look at the current state of internal audit and help identify what should be incorporated into our roadmap. So you can see that on this slide, the top half is our internal audit strengths and weaknesses. I just want to go through these really quickly. So we have a work group with diverse experience from the length of time that people have been working, the prior positions, the prior employers. We've got strong collaboration within our work group. We get along well, we leverage each other. And we do have an active peer network that we often turn to get advice on new requirements or how different pension funds are approaching things. For weaknesses, we did identify that we have some inefficiencies in our audit processes. We do acknowledge that we have some knowledge gaps, particularly in technology, investments, and benefits areas. And our risk assessment does have some limitations. On the bottom half of this slide, these are the opportunities and threats that are external to internal audit. And I wanted to highlight a couple of these also. So we believe that a significant opportunity is collaboration with ethics and compliance to help mature LACERA second line. We also think that a significant opportunity for us is supporting LACERA's strategic initiatives. As far as external threats, the emerging and changing risks, the constant change, is something that we are going to talk about more on our pillar, but being able to keep up with all of these changes. And then evolving external expectations. Next slide. So our final step was we mapped out LACERA's strategic initiatives to create 3 pillars for internal audits. Internal audits, 3 strategic pillars. We want to focus these pillars on helping us achieve not only internal audit's mission and vision, but to help LACERA achieve its mission and vision as well. So for the first pillar of trusted advisor, we looked at pairing superior member experience and fiscal durability together to help us become trusted advisors, which goes back to our vision statement. If we focus on enhancing our processes, we believe that we can establish ourselves as trusted advisors to help LACERA achieve its goals. For continuous learners, we saw investing in people and innovation through technology pairing together to help us become continuous learners. We realized that in order to become trusted advisors, we need to be continuously learning so that we can keep up with emerging risks, issues, and technologies. And the last pillar is risk consultants. As internal audit, we know that we cannot implement and impose a risk management process on LACERA. That would impair our independence. However, there are key activities that we can do as risk consultants to help LACERA prepare to stand up an enterprise risk management program. So at this point, I'm going to pause because this is sort of the end of the development of the roadmap and see if anybody has any questions about the development. Okay, so next slide. The next few slides are going to be a more detailed discussion on the initiatives around the strategic pillars. And I just want to take a moment and talk about the layout of these next couple of slides. When we were trying to determine the initiatives that we wanted to respond to these pillars, we spent time looking at what were the accomplishments that we've already completed, what are the current projects that we have ongoing, and we bucketed them into these pillars. And we were happy to report that we had a lot of accomplishments and current efforts that fell into these various different pillars. But I think that as we completed this plan, it really helped solidify why having a roadmap and a strategic plan was so important so that these initiatives are more focused. And so the initiatives for Trusted Advisor are, we want to revise our risk assessment process. As you might remember from the SWOT analysis, an area where we acknowledge that we should improve is our risk assessment process so that it includes a more complete view of the audit universe. It aligns better with LACERA's strategic plan, and it integrates with the Ethics and Compliance Office. The second initiative is we want to promote internal audit's value. This also goes back to our SWOT analysis under external opportunities. We want to focus on promoting the value of our work to help LACERA's strategic initiatives and encourage divisions to want to collaborate with us. Next slide. For continuous learners, our initiative goes back to acknowledging that to become trusted advisors, we realize we need to be continuously learning. We know from our SWOT analysis that we do have knowledge gaps, and we want to address these through more targeted training. The second initiative is to incorporate data analytics into projects. We want to use more data analytics in our projects to help drive accountability and encourage LACERA's decisions to be more data-driven. Next slide. This is the last pillar. And to help in the development of the aligned assurance model, we want to formalize our continuous audit processes so that we can provide more timely assurance on key enterprise risks. Additionally, we think that providing organizational risk training would help provide a more solid base for LACERA's enterprise risk management program. Next slide. So this slide is a summary of the presentation, essentially. It's our framework for our roadmap. I want to take this time to acknowledge that this was a great group effort. We spent a lot of different staff meetings going through these different phases and having a very collaborative discussion on different things. Communications helped me put together this slide deck. They took my idea and made it look much better. And we got great feedback from your ACRE committee consultant as well as the executive office. So this is a great collaborative process. Next slide. So we recommend that the committee approve the internal audit roadmap, and if it gets improved, we will work on creating more specific goals for each initiative over the 3 years. With that, does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. This is really great. It's very impressive. And I heard what you just said. I'm reading ahead, and in strategic planning, I've done a lot of it in my career, and it's so important to have objectives, measurements, dates, that you can hold yourself accountable to. So are you talking about that is in the future for this plan, or
So
what?
yes, at our next, if this gets approved,
Yeah.
each of these initiatives will be more developed, and we will have the objectives, the measurements, and the timeline for each of the 3 years. We will bring a separate discussion on that.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions?
I move, I'll go.
Oh.
I move to approve. I move to approve, if I may.
I'll second that. And I do have some.
Yeah, go ahead.
Or if you'd like to go first, I have comments also.
You go first.
Thank you, sir. Do we have to vote on the motion before I comment, or good to go? Yeah, I want to echo what Chair Martin said. This is really well done. It's succinct. You can tell that a lot of thought went into it. And like, what do they say? Chance favors a prepared mind, right? So it's really good to have this marched out, and then to be able to expand upon it, in the structure that it's in. I do have a question regarding, and I love the honesty, identifying, potential weaknesses, and you have to call it out, to be able to fix a problem, right? Just from the JOGC yesterday, the interface with the data collection and streamlining that we looked at the budget and stuff. I mean, obviously, will that help reduce that inefficiency and knowledge? Because that's the end game with that data collection from we're asking for more money and putting all that data together. So is that potentially going to reduce the weakness? Do you foresee that, or will this still be present, or have you guys thought of that yet, or don't know?
So I would say that the weaknesses that are identified are internal weaknesses. That would be more of an external opportunity that you're identifying, right? The more data collection, the better the organization has data. The inefficiencies that we have within our own processes are our own inefficiencies.
That data will help us with the continuous audit testing. It'll provide us the data for doing that, and it'll help that process. But to Christina's point, the inefficiencies are ours. We need to work on ours.
Human error, but it also it can be a levy against it too, right? I mean, with institutional knowledge and that can increase the knowledge, reduce the knowledge gaps because you're going to have a historical perspective. And
It's definitely not going to hurt. Yep. It'll help.
that's great. Really good. Thank you so much.
Okay, it's kind of in a similar vein. You identified the weaknesses internally. You said internal weaknesses within your organization. And then you saw external opportunities. And you talked about collaboration with the second line of management and supervision. Are external opportunities also available outside of our organization? That's, you don't have to give me a detailed response at this point, but yeah, I wanted to know, when you looked at external opportunities, did you just look externally outside of your division within LACERA, or does external include outside of our organization with peer groups, associations, sources of information and guidance?
So yes, it could include external to LACERA. For the top 3 that we brought forward, it was really just outside of internal audit, but within LACERA, we do think that we have opportunities that we do currently leverage. It's actually in our strengths for our peer network.
Okay, so I want a clarification on that, that you are going to be looking outside of the organization.
Yes.
And then I also wanted to know if you're going to leverage the work that's been done in the investment division in their risk assessment approach and information and strategies, data collection, stuff that they've done, managing our assets. But there are all kinds of externalities that they include in their risk assessment that affect management of our assets that can also be valuable in your assessment. So you're going to pursue that also?
Yes, we will.
Okay, I'm good.
Just one clarification. The threats on your SWOT analysis, that's outside of LACERA, correct? Those are usually what your threats come from the outside on the SWOT analysis, right?
The threats are external to internal audit. So just like the opportunities section.
Oh, I hear what you're saying.
It could be within LACERA. It could also be outside of LACERA.
Okay, thank you. And Trustee Me.
Comment. Nice work. I really enjoy looking at it. I read a memo. It sounds like this is our first time doing it because the new requirement from IIIA, correct?
Yes.
So I'm from BOI, so I know BOI a little bit more. So I believe like on BOI side, we do that, 3-year strategic plan, and then we have 1-year strategic goal, that team that does it really well on that side. And then I think your division probably is the second, division in this organization and doing this kind of vision, mission, and then leadership reflection on the team, right? How we do better. So my comment will be like, I would recommend every, division to think about doing this, not necessarily presenting, this kind of presentation, but honest self-reflection, of your team function and how you can do better, right? So in my opinion, leadership is always, knowing where you're at, have an honest reflection, knowing where you're at reality, and then have a vision where you're gonna go, right? And then the next step is gonna be articulate your vision and then communicate it so well to your whole team and motivate them to achieve that vision. So great job. And yeah, that's just a comment, no question.
Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, thank you for the great presentation, and I appreciate how you really align that plan with the organization's strategic plan as well. And so one thought though for the committee is, you mentioned that you develop more detailed initiatives and bring those back to the committee. The standards also require a periodic review by the committee of that plan, right? And so I noticed in the charter, for your quality assurance improvement program, it does state that the committee will annually review the results of that and where you are. But for the roadmap, it doesn't indicate anything like a periodic review. And so I'm wondering if you could just, I would my recommendation to the committee advice is that you have some kind of periodic review and update of the plan. And so can you speak to that a little bit? And
So we do intend to bring it back annually, probably at the August meeting when we bring a summary of the fiscal year work, which is also included in the quality assurance improvements. So we plan to bring that back annually. Once we develop more concrete activities, we also plan to include those in our audit plan, and the progress will be reflected in the quarterly annual audit plan update that Mr. Amick provides.
Thank you. You ready for the motion?
Call for the
Okay,
question.
so I'll make the motion. Mr. Green made the motion. Mr. Moore seconded. So I'll do a roll call. Ms. Mee?
Aye.
Ms. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Razzo?
Aye.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg? Yes. Chair Martin?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. So we received one request from Trustee Martinez for just cause. Trustee Martinez, can you publicly disclose whether any other individuals 18 years of age or older are present in the room with you?
No individuals 18 years or older are in the room with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will move on to non-consent items, request for proposal for the financial auditor.
Good morning, Chair Martin and trustees. Next slide, please. We're here to ask the ACRE Committee to approve the proposed minimum qualifications and search criteria for financial auditor. The RFP would be for 5 fiscal years with an option to extend for 2 additional 1-year terms. Plan Moran, our current financial auditor, will complete their contract with the fiscal year 2025 financial statement audit. The timing of this audit aligns with what the ACRE Committee told the staff at the last RFP search in March 2023, which is to consider starting the RFP process sooner, given that Plan Moran has been LACERA's financial auditor for nearly a decade. While the committee had no concerns about Plan Moran's performance, they generally felt that long tenure hinders the ability to provide a fresh perspective. Although the U.S. does not mandate audit firm rotation, it's important to consider audit firm rotations. The RFP process itself is valuable as it demonstrates good governance, can lead to better pricing, improved service, or modernized approaches. It also shows that we're being intentional and not procedural when it comes to selecting a financial auditor. Next slide, please. I want to take a minute here and share a real-world example from the city of Dixon, Illinois. In the early 2000s, the city of Dixon looked financially sound. However, over a period of 2 decades, the city's longtime comptroller embezzled over $53 million from the public funds. She did this under the radar of multiple audits, both internal and external. It became one of the largest municipal frauds in U.S. history. How did this happen, you can ask? The auditors never looked beyond the surface, and they had the same auditor for over 16 years. This was not a failure of accounting. It was a failure of skepticism. Your role as the member of the ACRE Committee is not just to ensure that the numbers add up. It is to make sure that LACERA is engaging with an audit firm that will ask the right questions, verify independently, and to provide assurance that goes beyond formality. This RFP search is about finding a partner who continues their role in helping us protect the integrity of our financial systems and the public trust that comes with them. As the first point states on the slide on helping protect auditor independence, here's why we're asking the ACRE Committee to play an important role by reviewing and approving the proposed services, the proposed MQs, and the search criteria. Next slide, please. So in preparing for this RFP, we looked at the history of LACERA's financial auditor from the past. Since 1984, LACERA has engaged with a total of 4 different audit firms with an average tenure of 9.5 years. Fun fact, the screenshots of the audit firms displayed here are from past financial statements in LACERA's financial reporting archive. Next slide, please. So these are the required professional standards that any financial auditor would adhere to when preparing financial statements for LACERA. I'll take a pause here and see if anything questions come up before I dive into the scope of services. Okay, next slide, please. So in developing the RFP scope of services, we surveyed internal stakeholders and received their feedback on what are they looking for in a financial auditor. The next 3 slides contain detailed scope of services that we're seeking and what we expanded up from the last RFP. As we go through the projects, I will point out new additions. So here, the majority of the work relates to assurance and attestation. The annual financial statement auditing and GASB disclosure auditing are labeled as Project 1 and 2. Both of them require assurance services. Assurance services refer to the independent valuation of the organization's financial statements and related reports to provide reasonable assurance that the statements are free from misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. These 2 are the core audit services where the financial auditor spends most of their time and resources on. Next slide, please. And project 3 and 4 here are seeking attestation services. Attestation services are a subset of assurance services where the auditor issues a formal report on subject matter. Here, I would like to call out project 4, LACERA Initial Readiness Assessment Review, which is brand new to this year's financial auditor RFP. We would like to conduct a more structured review of LACERA's internal controls over financial reporting, as well as IT controls related to key accounting information systems. Essentially, the high-level review will serve as a proactive measure to detect control gaps and enhance accountability. Next slide, please. And here is the non-attestation consulting work, which is also new because we broke it out as a separate category. Non-attestation work refers to services provided by an audit firm or auditor that do not involve issuing an opinion, conclusion, or assurance on a subject matter. In the past few years, LACERA has encountered new transactions or accounting guidance than what's required in-house for specialized expertise. As such, we would like the audit firm to provide consultation services, training, and timely updates that will aid LACERA's business operations whenever the need arises. While these services can provide valuable insights and support management, it is important to ensure the work does not compromise the auditor's independence. How can we do that? Management must make all decisions, supervise the work, and ultimately accept responsibility for the outcomes. Next slide, please. So in the event that the ACRE committee does end up selecting a new auditor, we have laid out a potential transition timeline between Plan and the successor auditor. Fiscal year 2026 will be the transition year where the initial readiness assessment and the auditing services will be performed. Next slide, please. And the next 2 slides here are the proposed minimum qualification for the firm and for the team. We designed the NQs to cast a wide enough net of diverse audit firms while still ensuring the firms have the foundational knowledge of auditing public pension fund. That's why we require a firm that has CPA license, that has experience with defined benefit plans, as well as OPEB, and that they have at least 5 years knowledge of GASB 67, 68, 74, and 75, and investment classes. So if there are no other questions on slide 10 and 11, I will go ahead to slide 12 on the evaluation criteria. Okay, thanks. So this slide depicts the evaluation criteria that would be used for assessing the RFPs. To ensure a fair and transparent selection process, proposals will be evaluated based on the following 4 categories. So starting clockwise with the top left corner of the slide. First up is organization background, weighing at 25%. What we're looking for are the firm's history and structure, demonstrated experience relevant to LACERA, their data privacy and cybersecurity practices, insurance coverage, legal matters, and DEI practices. In the lower left corner, team credential weighs another 25%. where we will consider the qualifications, certifications, and relevant experiences of the proposed engagement team. And moving on to the top right corner, the evaluation of services is 40%, since we believe this area contains bulk of the work. We will evaluate each firm's client service approach, proposed audit methodology, understanding our operations and risks, their use of technology, and their plan for communicating and coordinating with staff. And lastly, in the lower right corner, fee proposal is another 10%. Proposals will be reviewed for the overall cost and the hourly rate, transparency of the fee structure, and whether the pricing reflects fair value of the scope and quality of services offered. Next slide, please. So this slide provides a high-level overview of the evaluation process, which consists of an evaluation team with multiple stakeholders from internal to LACERA. Then this team will review the written responses and interview the top candidates. Then we will present our final scores, evaluation reviews, and the finalists to the ACRE committee for your selection at the August 2025 meeting. Next slide, please. And this is our final slide, just showing you the RFP search timeline. We've worked on the RFP design since March. The RFP is waiting to be finalized pending your approval today on the proposed scope of services, MQ, and search criteria. We aim to release the RFP by end of April and then spend the next 3 months evaluating the responses. The selection will be in August 2025, and we expect to finalize and execute the contract hopefully by October 2025. This concludes my presentation. Thank you, and I will take your comments and questions this time.
Thank you. I have a couple comments and one question. So the timeline on this RFP is excellent. So congratulations. I mean, you really did a lot of work in a short period of time. Sometimes these RFPs could just really drag out, you know that. I'm very impressed by the readiness assessment and the non-attestation consulting. Those two are really important areas. I mean, the whole world is changing, as you know, and adding those areas is outstanding. So I'm very proud of you for doing that. My question is on page 6.
Okay.
It's the third bullet. If you could explain a little bit about the disability retirement request.
Yes.
Yeah, I can take that. So historically, way back, the Board of Supervisors had a lot of concerns about our disability process, and we're concerned about just the appearances of the high number of disabilities that were being approved. And as they got us to engage in, and we had, I think, KPMG came in and did a review. We had some other reviews done of the disability process, and essentially found that to really sum it up, that the disability process was working effectively, and that any issues were with the laws, that that if there was any appearance of providing of disabilities, it was based on California law, that we were compliant with the law. But so to avoid having these ongoing external reviews of the process, we agreed to have our external audit firm, I can't remember if it was PwC at the time or Plant Moran or Brown Armstrong, start doing an agreed upon procedure review where they just looked at a number of disability cases to ensure and give assurance to the ACRE committee, to the boards as well, that that our disability process was effective and in compliance with the law. So that's what that is, an annual process. It's carved out. It's an agreed upon procedure review that the external financial firm does to provide us that assurance.
Okay, excellent. I just have, I'm going to use some words of wisdom from Captain Green over there. For the auditors, stay curious. Always stay curious. In life, stay curious. But yeah, you're doing a great job. Thank you. Anybody else? Trustee Me?
Thank you. If you may go to slide 12. Thank you. So on this slide here, I want to know 2023, when we did the last round of search, right? Was this the exact same criteria we used?
Actually not. We refined the evaluation of approaches based on the feedback to really include that partnership. So like client service approach, looking at their sample work. We're really looking for a partner, like we stated, right, that can help LACERA grow, especially LACERA as we grow, we encounter more transaction, and just to stay, what Trustee Martin said, to stay curious. So we really, refine the scope more to, so it expand upon what was previously presented last time.
It's an improvement.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm glad to see that. The other comments, I feel really glad to see the DEI being on the organization background evaluation. I think that's important. We'll do look into that. And then I think we'll blend in with the team credential, right? We want a new auditor to have a fresh perspective. And then we need to look into people that will diversified background, diversified experience, knowledge, and perspective from the team members, right, doing the work. So I think that would go side by side, with the team credential as well, looking at their experience backgrounds and then perspective. So we can have the ideal outcome of really having an auditor that have fresh perspective. Yeah.
Right.
Just
Okay.
comment.
Thank you.
Yes. My question is, are we focusing on a specific location for these potential candidates that might, is it going to be California-based company? Is it nationally, internationally, or is it something, because it seems like it's very specialized, very specific to this type of, the needs that we have are kind of unique. So do you have an idea?
So it is US based. Even at the last search that we had 6 bidders, and they came from outside of California, but they serve other public pension funds in California. So because even Plummerand, they're based in Michigan, I believe. So it's hard to find local California. They just have to be licensed in California, the partner, because for signing purpose to sign off on the financial statements.
I see. Yeah. Thank you.
We have a motion to move.
Oh, sorry, I think Mr. Moore.
I'm sorry, Mr. Moore.
Okay. Page number 6 and 12. Those are important pages because
Yes.
That's already been discussed, and I have questions or issues or just statements on those same 2 pages.
Okay.
Okay. So starting with page 12, I wanted to compliment or at least show my appreciation for focusing the major portion of the evaluation criteria on their approach and their past performance and their actual experience on the specific issues that are important to us. And one of them that I think is important is consulting services on emerging issues.
Yes.
And so I'm a believer that you got to change your auditors periodically in all phases, because that's exactly what you want to bring into your organization on a continuing basis is new approaches, different ideas, what are other people doing, and getting back to page 2 or going back to page 6 and item number 2, where gotta go find it now, but where you want to be able to in your performance of an attestation of the reporting, you want to make sure that interpretations of how information is recorded and reported that was implemented 10 years ago by your prior accountant that you carry through are still relevant and current with another look and a new perspective on those same guidances from the international organization and the GASB interpretations. So those are 2 important issues. And I think you got those identified, and it's going to be interesting to see whether that develops into anything that puts things in a better light for us.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Trustee Green?
I'll move to adopt this with a comment.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Yeah, excellent presentation. I remember the discussion in 23. It was really robust and a lot of concerns about, fresh talent, but I'm not, and I wanted, before I move on, I want to say thanks for including the RFP questionnaire in the presentation. I think that's really valuable to see, that they got to put pen to paper and I appreciate the process, the RFP process wholeheartedly, but I'm not intimidated or have a concern if an existing group comes back in and they're the top performer with all the criteria. If you look at the history of it, of our previous, Brown was with us 13 years, PwC 11. If this went through, like just hypothetically, if we go with Plant Moran, an additional 5 years would put us at 13. So it's not, there's something about that institutional knowledge and everything, but the best thing about the RFP process is that it makes it, even if you take on somebody you've already had, you're setting it up, hey, we're good with your performance so far, keep it up. Show us that you can continue this, and it keeps them on their toes too, and everybody else. So thank you again for the presentation.
Thank you. Oh,
We're doing a vote. So Mr. Green made the motion, Ms. Martinez, second, Ms. Mee,
yes.
Ms. Martinez,
Yes.
Ms. Durazo,
I,
Mr. Green,
Aye.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg. Yes. Chair Martin.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so we're ready to move on. Advisory review of the recruitment and hiring process.
Yes.
Christina is up
Yes.
again.
Good morning again, Chair and trustees. Yes, I'm here to present the advisory review of the recruitment and hiring process. Next slide, please. So this project was on our fiscal year 2025 audit plan, originally as a follow-up from the iBilly review done in 2022, as well as due to the high-risk nature related to human capital shown by research such from Institute of Internal Auditors, the Society of Human Resources and Management, and by Gartner, a top research firm. Moreover, recruitment is also tied to LACERA's strategic plan on investing in people. In our early meetings with senior leadership to discuss this project, it was determined that an advisory review would be more suitable, given that the recruitment process has undergone substantial changes recently, such as hiring additional HR analysts, consolidating recruitment practices into the hiring playbook, and expanding the use of NeoGov to aid the recruitment process. So instead of an audit report on past HR practices, similar to the one done by iBailey, management would like to receive forward-looking perspectives in the form of an advisory review. And a quick analogy here to describe the difference between an audit versus an advisory review is that of a referee and a coach. An audit is a referee that is independent and objective and focused on complying with the rules. A coach, on the other hand, collaborates with the team to give constructive feedback and helps you win and get better over time. IA has performed advisory reviews such as the operational due diligence review with the investment office, as well as the document retention review with the executive office and legal. For the scope of work, internal audit and management agreed to focus on reviewing the recruitment process, vacancy reporting, and identifying opportunities for improvement. The period under review is from calendar year 2023 to 2025. Next slide, please. Okay. So this slide, the one metric that gets reported out monthly to the BOR is LACERA's vacancy rate. IA compared LACERA's vacancy rate to other California public agencies, from local municipalities to public pension peers. And we included agencies from both Northern and Southern California. We considered the geographic location of LACERA as cost of living in Los Angeles is significantly higher and a competitive labor market with saturated job opportunities in both private and public sectors. While high vacancies remain a consistent issue across many public agencies, LACERA does have a higher rate than most of its peers. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned previously in the scope of work, we did test the accuracy of the vacancy reporting for the last 2 years. Our testing identified several mathematical inaccuracies caused by manual calculation errors and already notified management during our review. Management is currently working on improving the HR reporting dashboard to the BOR. Another point of consideration is the limitation of vacancy rate. Vacancy rate simply measures the proportion of unfulfilled positions, unfulfilled budgeted positions at a point in time, and it does not take into account the number of non-permanent staff, like temps, contractors, and interns. So while useful metric, the vacancy rate has its key limitations. First, it lacks context. It doesn't explain why positions are vacant. It ignores quality and fit. It doesn't capture whether the right candidates are being hired or retained. It's a reactive, not proactive measure. Vacancy rate is a lagging indicator showing outcomes rather than early warning signs. So while vacancy rate gives a snapshot of the open positions, we suggested to management that it'd be helpful to track additional recruitment metrics. Some proactive metrics to consider are time to fill, time to hire, source of hire, quality hire, etc. I have included a list of the top recruitment metrics on slide 7. Please note that the chart is not meant to be prescriptive, but rather to offer a range of metrics for consideration. I will take a pause here and see if trustees have any questions for me before I move on to the opportunities for improvement. Okay, if not, I will go on to the next slide, please. So here's really a snapshot of the areas that we, based on our observations, that we think recruitment process can be benefited from the opportunity for improvement. We categorize them into the 8 identified opportunities for improvement into 3 major buckets: people, process, and technology. For people, we think more training should be held and the role should be more defined. For process, there should be more focus on strategic alignment and to get feedback to improve the process. And lastly, for technology, there should be more focus on using available technology and data, as well as incorporating metrics. Next slide, please. So here's the detailed list of opportunities that we identify based on researching industry standards and best practices, internal stakeholder feedback, as well as the previous recommendations issued by the iBailey report in 2022. What I would like to highlight is the first one: to develop an enterprise-wide workforce plan to evaluate employee attrition related to retirement risks and addressing current vacancy rate. Just a little background what the purpose of a workforce plan is. I learned about it during my research while working on this project. It provides a strategic framework to identify and address staffing gaps, support continuity and succession planning, and enable data-driven decisions. It would be a holistic look of LACERA's workforce and looking at demographic, age, years of service. So all these indicators of someone who might be on their way to retirement soon. This was also something that iBailey found in 2022 was consistent with what we noted during research. Management agreed that a workforce plan is important to LACERA and has requested internal audit to track the progress as part of our regular record follow-up process. We believe that opportunities 1 through 5 would enhance the recruitment process by being more strategic in meeting the organization's business needs. Opportunities 6, 7, and 8 would improve the vacancy reporting and metrics related to the recruitment process. Next slide, please. Here, so in our exit meeting with LACERA management agrees with the opportunity for improvement. The 2 graphs shown on this chart really summarize the 2 takeaways from my presentation. 1, recruitment should be more strategic, and 2, to incorporate more metrics. We recognize that every organization has unique workforce needs and operational priorities. Using more recruitment-related metrics can help us assess the progress made more holistically beyond just the vacancy rate. In summary, I would like to say that hiring is not just about filling positions, it's about fulfilling LACERA's mission and vision. Over time, even well-intentioned hiring practices can become fragmented. Policies may be applied inconsistently, timelines stretch longer, and bottlenecks arise. And in a competitive labor market, that can mean losing out to strong, diverse candidates. This advisory review is not an audit. It's a collaborative opportunity to take a step back and provide a fresh perspective on recruitment. Our goal is to highlight what's working well, what area can be improved, and how to strengthen the recruitment and hiring process for the future. I would like to thank the Executive Office and HR Management for their collaboration on this project. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, I got a couple questions, a couple comments, as
Yes.
usual. My hat goes off to you. It definitely goes off to your executive team as well to actually dig into this. I know it's not an audit. I know it's advisory, but I never seen anybody do something like this. This is a study. This is whatever it is based on the operation now and today. I would hate to see this shelved. I don't think that is your purpose, but sometimes that happens. I'd like to suggest, I know that you said the exec management, if you turn to page 6, maybe that would help, or slide 6. Developing the enterprise workforce plan, I think, is excellent. That's the first thing you have to do. And you talked about that being a strategic measurement, like 1 through 5. I would like you to consider putting in some more metrics. Maybe, I mean, particularly I like 7 and 8, because I think a little bit of strategic, a little bit of metrics is going to give you, something to move forward on. And it's not like you're taking this whole page and trying to analyze it. So that would be my suggestion.
You mean take it and
I think
report it back to you guys on the progress, or
I'd love to know what the progress is, but I know this is advisory. I think I would like to know what the progress is. I support you moving forward on 1.
Mhm.
I would like you to incorporate 7 and 8 as well.
I see.
Yeah. That's just my recommendation.
Okay.
Okay.
And as part of our process now, internal audit, so right now we're doing advisory review on the front end, and we're going to give management a year or 2 to refine their process, take some of our feedback, and then we're going to come back and do an audit once the process more solidified.
Because it's so important. We all hear 20%, 20%, 20%, but we really don't understand what makes up that.
Yes.
And so breaking it down further is going to be helpful for all of us, because I feel like we just hammer you on it's 20%, it's 20%.
Right.
And so I think this exercise is going to give us all, it's going to open our eyes to what it takes, to bring on staff. And we might be able to find areas where we can improve once you start digging into the weeds.
Right.
So that's all for me.
Thank
Anybody
you.
else? Oh, Trustee Moore. Oh, okay. So we'll go with Trustee Durazo, then me. Oh, do you have something to say, Carly?
If the chair, if please, the
Absolutely.
chair.
Go ahead.
Great. Good morning, trustees. Thank you, Chair Martin. And thank you to the internal audit team, Ms. Sun and Ms. Logan. Just wanted to provide a little bit of insight into the recent conversation. We have been working with the internal audit team for a few months now.
Yeah.
And some of the recommendations and opportunities for improvement have already been enacted. So related to, I think, number 8, specifically developing metrics to track and monitor the recruitment and hiring process, we are reporting on those monthly in the CEO report. Some of the things just came up in the budget report. Every now and then we present at the either offsite for 1 or 2 boards that elaborates on these issues. We've also taken an approach that has integrated this type of reporting, data gathering and reporting of the data as a part of our strategic plan. So strategic initiative 3.3, which is related to investing in people, improving and simplifying the hiring process, has a few of these already built into the objectives, milestones with dates. As you talked about earlier, it's important to have objectives, milestones, and completion dates. And that gets reported out to the OOC, I think, every quarter.
So have we seen that you're talking about?
The audit, the ACRE committee specifically.
I would remember if there was measurements in there. So I just haven't seen anything on the
Yeah.
strategic plan that I can call. I'll do some more research on my own though.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we've also,
That's because Ms. Martin says on the BOI, this is a BOR administration.
oh,
There's an
yes.
ah.
The difference between the BOR and the BOI, right? So
Yeah.
it is the BOR's strategic plan, and we put it out on the OOC. So unless you would
Yeah.
specifically be on the BOR or OOC, maybe you don't have visibility into that.
That's interesting. Shouldn't we? Even BOI should have. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other,
Thought I
sorry,
was
I don't
losing
mean
my
to walk
brain.
off. Any other questions?
No, you're fine. You're fine. Thank
Okay.
you. We needed to talk about that. So thank you.
Fantastic.
Okay, so back to trustee Durazo. No? Me?
Sure, that's
Okay.
me. If you may go to slide 3. So this one, thank you. So I joined the board 2024. I hear here and there, we have concern with HR hiring process and the vacancy rate, but I didn't, have the number and put the sense of understanding exactly where we stand in comparison with, other agency peer benchmark, right? So I think this, I didn't know we have it. So this is really helpful for me to understand where we're at, quantified it where we're at. So I think this is a great practice. This is also linked it to slide 6, and then just kind of emphasizing slide 6 where I see the column here, industry standards and best practices being consistently a column that being recommended for improvement, right? And then it's exactly that chart that we look at slide 3 there, the meaning in it to help us, the board, to have a better oversight, to understand where we are as an organization. Also would help the board, to make better decision, right? When we have questions for a specific issue, we want to know what other agency, other pension fund are doing the best practice, and then will be helpful. We hear from HR to give us those information. So working on this area, I think it's important, knowing where we stand, knowing how other practice out there. I think it's also a point that we say that we are learning and growing organization, right? So I don't see learning and growing would happen if we don't take on information from outside and from out there. So that's the other point. I think this is important. I want to comment on both division, HR, and audit team working together. This collaboration is amazing, right? So I know HR is busy on the day-to-day, operation in the meantime, and then audit team offer to take a deep dive, into the issue and help HR, to do the self-reflection and, figure out the area that we can improve. I think this is a great collaboration. And then HR colleagues spoke earlier. And thank you for being proactive, working on the recommendation. And then we're looking forward to see the improvements. And thank you.
Thank you.
That's all.
Okay, we got some hands up. Trustee Green
Mr. Moore was
and
Mr.
more.
Moore was ahead of me.
Is it still up there or no? Okay, then we'll go with more first. Yeah, thank you.
We can always,
Yeah, I know. I didn't know if you lowered it and put it back up.
we always want more.
Go ahead,
I
please.
just want to comment on the chart on page 1 and those comparisons of vacancy rates. And a couple of things is the comparisons include like the county in San Diego, the county of LA, the county and city of San Francisco, city of Los Angeles, who all have a large blue collar component in their numbers.
Mhm.
And so I think it would be much better comparison if we tried to kind of narrow it down to, we're a mostly professional organization. So you want to look at their professional series and see what the vacancy rates are for that group of employees to get a better sense of what's going on in recruiting the people that we need to have.
Mhm.
And that also creates a better platform for finding out what they're doing that we're not doing if they're doing better than we are in recruitment. To be more targeted. And then I was looking at the budget presentation from yesterday, and I noted that in the administrative area, I can't think of whether it was specifically staffing, but administration is mostly staffing, right? That's what we do. There was a budget to budget comparison, the 24-25 budget versus the proposed 25-26 budget. And it showed an increase of about 5% year over year on a budget to budget basis. But the projection for fiscal 25 was a underrun of the budget, negative budget performance, you could call it, however you want to characterize it. We spent 5% less, but next year we want 5% more on a budget that we didn't even attain in 2025. That seems a little bit inconsistent, incongruent, kind of doesn't make sense to me at that level. And that affects this vacancy number, because if we're carrying vacancies over year after year, then does that truly reflect a shortage of staff? So I figured Mr. Guillermo would get up on this one. So I just want to make sure that, we got the best numbers that we have. And I'm going to get the answer right now.
I'm not sure I had a specific question, Madam Chair, Trustee Moore. It's a little bit off topic, so I want to caution make sure we're compliant with the Brown Act. We had a discussion in the JOCC yesterday, which this is one of the reasons we actually encourage all trustees to attend the JOCC, because it's a great place to get your questions answered. The budget we budget based on the filled positions, and we make assumptions about our plan to fill vacant positions in the budget. So the fact the vacancy rate reported here is separate from the budget discussion, which I would encourage that we'll be discussing in a couple of weeks at the BOR and at the BOI, if that is helpful.
I got all that, but the vacancy rate is here, and the vacancy rate is a function of those numbers of budgeted positions and filled positions.
That's correct.
The only reference I have is what was in the budget.
No, I follow you. We don't budget for assuming all the positions are filled. Our assumptions related to the budget is we look at what was filled today, or at a point in time. Usually it's about March. And we make assumptions about based on our hiring plan, what we anticipate being able to onboard. The challenge that we always have is related to attrition. We've been challenged over the last few years about while we've done an incredible amount of hiring. I think our projection year over year for the current fiscal year was that we would actually only have a net difference after 60 hiring actions have result in net addition of 9 positions. So that's because we do promotions, and we also have some attrition. So that's the result of that. But in terms of the budget, we try to balance, that's how we assume what's filled, what our hiring plan is, and that's how and when we anticipate onboarding positions, so some positions are not funded at all. Others are funded partially, depending on when we anticipate bringing them on board.
Okay, so as a budgeteer, most of my career, I understand all the multiple layers. All I'm really focused in on is I don't like the 20% number.
Nobody
does.
Should
be, if it's a better number than that, then that's what I would like to see, is a better number. Because as you aptly stated, that 20% has been around for a long time. That tells me that there's something wrong if we're being very efficient and effective in delivering our services and programs. That I don't know about, I'm questioning whether or not all those positions or the positions that are vacant should even be there. That's the
I follow
question
you.
it
I
raises.
follow you. I think that there's we agree that the 20% vacancy rate is a problem. It is a strategic initiative, as Dr. Ntoya pointed out. Strategic Initiative 3.3 talks specifically about improving the hiring plan. Our goal, we have specific goals, measurable goals to reduce that vacancy rate. In addition, we are doing divisional assessments. The division managers, as part of the budget process, are looking at the resources that they need to perform their work and assessing what their budgetary needs are annually with the review of the leadership in the executive office. Additionally, HR is working with us to identify sort of an approach division by division to do assessments of do we have people in the right classifications? Do we have people? What's the work, and how are efficiencies based on technology? How would that impact our staffing needs? Because our staffing needs to change. Also, it's important to point out that those 20% are not the same positions that are vacant. So we have positions, a significant number of hiring actions that are taken, and we have a significant amount of change via promotion or attrition that occurs. So
Can I chime
it's
in a
revolving door.
I think what Trustee Moore is trying to say, I think, because I'm feeling the same thing, this budget, right? We want to understand that 20%. I mean, you're telling me things, but break that down. How many are blue collar versus, professional? How many are this? How many are that? We want that information. We don't want just to hear we're doing A, B, C, D, because I feel like we're going down the same path we've been going down for months about this. We want more data about that 20%. Am I right?
Yeah, because if you're doing that level of detailed analysis of what the vacancy rate should be, how much staffing we should have, you've done a enterprise-wide manpower planning process and you've gone through that, that number should not be consistently 20%. I think that's the bottom line. Is we want to make sure that you're actually doing all these things so that we got the best numbers that we can have.
Noted.
So it's really reflective of what our situation is, and it's not, oh, we're 20% understaffed, that means something is not getting done. Well, maybe things are getting done and that 20% number is not the right number.
One point also is that some positions that are, well, that number does not reflect the use of temporary staffing that we use extensively in some areas. Our goal is not to continue to use temporary staffing, right? Our goal is to have permanent staff where there's a permanent need.
But we need to understand, okay, of how much, I don't know how many of those positions are covered by contractors or temp staff and what that cost is or anything. That's the data, I guess, I keep going back to.
No,
so that's good, good stuff that we would like to know.
Okay, we'll be happy. I think I would request that we talk about that in our budget presentations for you.
Okay. So Trustee Green?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I know this is out of audit scope and, but you guys took on the challenge. And I really believe, for the benefit of our pensioners, right? I mean, this is the whole idea. And, we're talking about stuff and I agree with Mr. Moore. The data pool for comparison should be, pension funds. It would be better data. And I don't know if you extracted that and just included this for reference, but if you actually looked at that, but I think it's absolutely applicable and germane to the study. Now, I do want to highlight some things. The hiring process, we're smoking the county, 152.4 days from start to finish. That's an average for all hires that are occurring which we asked for some clarification yesterday on that, kind of to demonstrate, because different departments and different positions require, significant training and whatnot. So, but comparing average to average, the county's coming in at what, Carla is 281. So, I know we're a smaller deal, but we still have to follow the same rules, civil service process. But, and then implementation of these new things that we're talking about as far as solving this problem with NeoGov implementation, the funding for that, it should get better. It should streamline. I mean, with the data, the one data point that I would ask you to look at before I forget, is possibly, if you can obtain it, is if someone does not come to LACERA for whatever reason, they start the hiring process and then they opt out.
Yes, if you can, Gabe, if you can go to the last summary slide. I believe you're talking about the acceptance ratio. It's one of the metrics.
Numbers that.
Yeah, so hold on. Keep going. Yeah, oh, so 9, offer acceptance rate. So you see,
9.
wait. You see number 9, offer acceptance rate. So you will see.
I don't have a number 9.
Oh, you see on the right chart says top recruiting metrics. Oh,
oh, gotcha. Okay, gotcha. Offer
yeah,
acceptance
and we
rate.
even talk about internally with exec, even first year attrition rate, right? Are people staying on LACERA once they get hired? And just so I can touch back on the chart, right? It's really hard to find vacancy rate for public pension funds. LACERA is one of the few where we even report out every month because we're, very transparent. CalSTRS and CalPERS were the only 2 I could find, but CalPERS didn't have recent data. CalSTRS do it as part of their workforce planning. So to Trustee Moore and Martin's point, if you do a workforce plan, you get that holistic view saying, okay, what positions are vacant? Okay, what's your vacancy rate? And then that's why time to fill and time to hire is so important. It's like HR terms, right? So time to hire is when the candidates submit their application to when they come on board. But from the feedback, I'll have, speaking on behalf of the hiring manager, maybe it's the time to fill. The moment when the hiring manager put in notice saying, hey, I need to fill this position to when this person come on board, that we're not tracking. And sometimes it varies between, a few months versus a year. These are metrics that like CalSTRS and CalPERS that you can include in your workforce plan so that you can see a year over year where your trends are. And we definitely had internal conversations out of these 13, what is something that we're looking for as we build into metrics? Because that seems to be a focus. And, internal audit, we love data. I love metrics. So yeah, we're all speaking the same language. But yes, so Trustee Green, offer acceptance rate is what I think you're.
Yeah, well, even more specifically, like, a questionnaire, like, why did you, you're asking them specifically, why did you not choose to come to LACERA?
Right, to actually get the candidate's feedback.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
And, and even evaluation of the process and, have an open section. I mean, I think that data is important. I still have some things to talk about. I mean, again, this is really great. And you can't ask somebody when they're going to retire, really. And you can't, if someone's injured or anything, but there is data collection. And I know you guys are doing that to try and get a crystal ball into the future of that attrition rate or potential promotion. It's hard though, because there's a slinky effect, right? And someone quits or retires or goes off on injury, and then the whole process has to start. That's not lost on me at all. How do we make it better? Data, some way to look into the future, and, you can look at some things, years of service, age of employee, number of injuries, go down the list, and you're like, yeah, they're probably going to be gone here soon.
Right.
So, I mean, that data is there. And so I know you guys are working on it, and I know that's already being looked at with HR. But, to my point with why we got a consistent 20%, the state of the workplace report, this is not, unique to us. We've been talking about it for years. In CPERS did the study, the cost of pension reform, the ones I flew back in my checked luggage that I brought for the board. Did anybody happen to read that? It's an incredible study the cost of pension reform. You have lower interest in public pensions, lower recruitment. There's, and applicants for the job. And in some places like finance and stuff like that, when you're trying to pursue a DEI threshold, there's just not people that don't look like somebody at the top, so they're not applying. We know that, it's being talked about, and it's consistent. And though I really appreciate Mr. Moore's point, as close as you can get to a comparative, to look at what someone else is doing, if their numbers are different, I agree with that, but it's consistent along pension systems, municipalities, counties, state systems. They're talking about it on the East Coast. It's, talking about it in CPERS, and there is data, and maybe that's something to look at too, because we've talked about the pepper issue here and in addressing it, but it shouts out, and then, that's not even having the overburden of legislation that weakens, collective bargaining rights and everything else. Don't even get me started on that. So, it's there. It's just, how do we get more people in? Well, you have to make it attractive. You have to compensate them. The speed in which hiring, I think there's going to be a governor on it at some point because of the process necessary from start to finish. And we're really doing good to the HR folks. You guys, and, independently getting this stuff together and going after this. This is all for the benefit of the pensioners. So I commend you all for it. But I do think, until, public civil service is sexy again, it's not going to be, we're not going to have a bunch of people knocking down the door to come work at these public entities. I hate to say it, when you have a cap on your pension and you're pulling in a high salary level on the county code, and you're never realizing in retirement, why the heck would you want to come here? When you can, it's just what it is. So I'm off my soapbox. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We need a motion.
Yes, motion to accept and file.
I'll move.
Second,
Second.
Trustee Moore.
Okay, second.
The motion was made by Mr. Mr. Green. Second motion, second by Mr. Moore. Ms. Mee?
Aye.
Ms. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Raza?
Aye.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg? Yes. And Chair Martin.
Yes.
And the motion passes unanimously to accept and file.
So now we're moving on to reports. They're informational only, but I want to pull D and E. Do any of the other trustees want to pull any items?
I think the first report is not information only, right? That's presentation.
Okay, that's presentation. Sorry,
Actually,
we
the
have two
first
presentations.
A, B, C
Okay,
are
You're right.
presentations. So,
we have two
and then we go on to the-
presentations, and then we'll pull those two.
No, there's three.
Three?
Three presentations.
Oh, there's a three. Sorry, I should know that. And then I'd like to pull two of them. Can we take a 10-minute break right now?
Sure.
Okay, so get back at 10:35.
Recording stopped.
Jump.
I could repeat it for you.
Recording in progress.
Yeah, well, we're gonna, okay, thank you. So this board has a drop dead time to end at noon, which I think is plenty of time for us to get through the,
The item right now is a follow-up to, was actually one of the educational items that we did not get to at the March educational session with the ACA committee. So the first half of it, at least, is going to be an educational piece, followed by the kickoff of our risk assessment process. So this one will probably take about 20 minutes.
okay, perfect.
Yeah, and then I think the others will go through it a little bit faster.
Thank you.
So I'm thankful for the break, because I think we went from that energetic discussion to a discussion on risk management and internal audit risk assessment. And without a break, I think I would have lost most of you. So if we could go to the next slide. Back at that March meeting, the next one actually, please. Oh, this talks about the agenda for the day. I'll skip this one too. Back at the March meeting, we did talk about a different model of the three lines model that the IAA has. And I think in that one, we said that the first line, we used the analogy of it being a football team, and the CEO and the staff in the organization are the players. The second line, risk management and compliance, and second line functions were the coaches, and they assisted the first line in achieving their objectives. And then the third line is internal audit, and we provide the independent assurance. And so this discussion on risk management really follows this discussion of the three lines. And risk management, the first line, is the first one I'll be talking about. And in this is a different sort of view of the three lines model. And I think I like this line because the second, the blue triangle shows that first line. The second and third lines are the ones below, and they're the ones that are under the oversight of the ACA committee. And I think that's important to the discussion today, that the ACA committee has oversight of the second and third line functions, as reflected in your ACA committee charter. This really also reflects the synergies between the three lines. So if we go to the next slide. Simply put, risk management is what the first line does to achieve the objectives of the organization. To be effective, that is done in alignment with the strategic objectives of the organization, which should align with the organization's mission. At LACERA, that is to produce, protect, and provide the promised benefits to our members. Next slide. I know these might seem like silly examples, but I was thinking of some very basic daily tasks that we do which we may take for granted, but really do demonstrate the employment of risk management in our daily lives. We brush our teeth every morning and night, hopefully to avoid unpleasant dental work and to keep our teeth into our old age. We practice safe driving to get ourselves and our families safely to wherever we are going and back home again. We also practice risk management whenever we cross the road, with the objective, of course, to get to the other side. Next slide. Risks are often evaluated on the matrix of likelihood and impact. You can see the risks on this matrix at the top right are colored red. These are the risks that have a high or very high likelihood of occurring, and also a high level of impact. These are the obvious risks to pay attention to. On the other hand, the ones at the bottom right, the ones with the low impact and low likelihood of occurring, are risks that we don't need to be as concerned about. Where it gets tricky are the ones that have a low likelihood, but can have a very high impact. Ford Motor Company very famously did not address changing out the bolts on the rear bumpers of the Ford Pinto back in the 1970s, when they learned there was a very low likelihood of the car exploding in a rear impact collision. That, of course, came back to bite them, and they were then faced with large lawsuits, significant damage to their reputation, and had to make the fix to prevent further loss of lives. The next slide talks about inherent versus residual risk. This is another really important concept in the discussion of risk and risk management, as well as risk assessment, is inherent versus residual risk. Inherent risk is the risk before risk mitigating strategies or controls are put in place. Residual risk is the risk level after risk management controls are in place. Going back to my example of risk management in our daily lives, consider the risk of crossing a very busy highway or boulevard with maybe 2 or 3 lanes of fast-moving traffic in each direction. The inherent risk of just walking across that road without looking is extremely high. Probably won't make it to the other side. However, we can mitigate that risk significantly by looking left and looking right before crossing, or better yet, crossing at an intersection or crosswalk with traffic lights. The risk isn't zero. There's still some residual risk that a car runs the light, but your chances are a lot better. The risk may be a lot lower, but residual risk doesn't mean, and that's an important concept, residual risk does not mean no risk. Bringing it back to LACERA, on the administrative side, under the Board of Retirement, the inherent risk of accounting for pensionable salaries and service credits, calculating accurate retirement payments, paying those retirement payments to members throughout their lives, and ensuring that the payments stop when the members die. The inherent risks of that are very high. The inherent risk of a retirement benefit plan is extremely high and complex. With the innumerable policies, procedures, technological systems that aid in processing and managing of benefits, well-trained and supervised staff, and a well-designed system of controls, the residual risk of running a pension fund is not quite as scary. Employing the appropriate risk management practices with all the checks and balances allows staff and the boards the ability to sleep a bit easier. Similarly, on the investment side of LACERA, investing in high-risk investment vehicles such as private equity or real estate, or even just the broad markets, have very high inherent risk. Someone could get lucky, but that is not a recipe for a sustainable pension fund. And nobody here would be sleeping well at night if we were counting on being lucky. So under the BOI, we have a sophisticated team of investment professionals. They partner with custodial banks, actuaries, and investment consultants to develop well thought out and risk-based investment policies and strategies, such as asset allocation strategies that align with our actuarial return objectives. I would never try to speak for John Grable, but I'm sure I've heard him say that we aren't trying to eliminate risk altogether, but rather manage risk in our investment practices to achieve our investment goals. In the case of investments, the residual risk is just the right level of risk to achieve our investment goals. Next slide. And that's just our mission. And we go to the next one after that. So again, the first line of operations, and looking at the administrative side, we have the member operations group, member services, benefits, retiree healthcare, disability retirement, that are all the frontline doers. Back to that 3 lines model, they're the frontline, the doers. They provide the promised benefits to our members and also protect those benefits. They're supported by administrative services, admin services, systems, FASD, the Financial Accounting Services Division, Human Resources, and Communications, as well as the hybrid first and second line divisions of legal, InfoSec, and quality assurance. In reality, all of the divisions in the middle and right box are actually have hybrid responsibilities. Sometimes they have their own first line responsibilities as well as hybrid second line responsibilities. Under the next slide, under the Board of, that's just showing a sort of overview of the Board of Retirement's universe. Next slide. Under the Board of Investments, you have the investment office and the various asset classes within that office that are the first line, the doers, aiming to produce and protect the promised benefits. They are partnered with investment managers, custodial banks, and various investment consultants. They too are supported by the administrative services divisions, the financial accounting services division, admin services, systems, HR, and communications, as well as by the legal office and InfoSec. These are very high level and oversimplified views of the first line operations under the Board of Retirement and Board of Investments. There are hundreds of functions, sub-functions, and processes that occur under each, and many thousands of millions of transactions that occur within each year. Some Staff manage these risks through through complex operations to successfully achieve the goals and objectives of the organization. That's just an overview of the Board of Investments roles. We go to the next slide. So this just gives this timeline is far from complete, but gives a history of risk management evolution at LACERA. It points out some of the notable milestones, the big milestones in the maturity of the organization when it comes to risk management. In or about 1991, shortly after the time that LACERA separated from the Treasurer and Tax Collector's Office and moved to Pasadena, the legal office and the chief legal counsel position was created. Internal audit was established a year later in 1992. The Quality Assurance Division was established in 1998, and QA plays a key role in ensuring the accuracy and integrity of benefit calculations, such as the retirement calculations, previous service contracts, and more. They also have the responsibility for providing training in the organization to the benefits and member services teams. The Process Management Group and the Benefits Protection Unit were established between 2013 and 2015. PMG is instrumental in ensuring that policies and procedures are developed consistently and in compliance with the County Employee Retirement Law and PEPRA. The Benefits Protection Unit performs the death identification process and investigates difficult cases where there are questions about eligibility of beneficiaries, concerns about the validity of member signatures, and other issues related to protecting the member benefits. Mr. Rice and Ms. Barrett have provided the ACA committee with a tremendous amount of information about their plans for the newly formed ethics and compliance function, which you can see on this chart as well in 2024. And the formal ERM function is being initiated in the Internal Audit Office. And I'll discuss briefly some more about ERM in slides to follow. Slide 15. Next slide. So I've discussed risk management as it relates to the first line management function. That is the management of risks to achieve the objectives of the organization in alignment with the strategic direction of the organization. So what is the second line function of enterprise risk management? You can read the definition that's here on the screen, but ERM is a centralized function that supports the first line areas. In other terms, ERM is a centralized function that supports the first line areas of the organization to ensure there's a framework and consistency to the identification and consideration of risks and the employment of risk management practices. It can be a standalone division that reports to the CEO, the ACA committee, and the boards, or in our case, a second line function under the internal audit division. We're going to have to ensure that we have firewalls between the first and second line, between our second and third line functions, our second line function of ERM and our third line function of independent assurance. The next slide just shows some of the areas that ERM covers, and elements of a centralized ERM program include having risk registers, key risk indicators, having divisional risk champions that we work with throughout the organization, determination of risk appetites, consideration of emerging risks. It really helps to ensure throughout the organization that risk is not addressed in a siloed basis, and it helps to provide assistance to that first line on developing risk management strategies. So again, I've talked about the first line responsibility for risk management, employing strategies and practices to mitigate the inherent risks of the business to achieve the goals of the organization. Talk briefly about the second line functions of ethics and compliance and enterprise risk management that support the first line. So that really concludes the discussion on the risk management side of things. And now I will talk about internal audit's risk assessment and audit planning process. Internal audit is the third line that provides the ACA committee, boards, and other stakeholders with assurance that the first and second lines are carrying out their responsibilities in an effective and efficient manner and in compliance with laws and regulations. That is no small feat. And of course, it is not possible to audit everything all the time. Not only would that require an enormous amount of auditors, it would also grind the business to a halt. You cannot make the plane out of the black box. So one of the most important aspects of internal audit's role is to develop an appropriately sized and focused risk-based audit plan. And that's really the objective of our annual risk assessment process. Our risk assessment process is employed by internal audit to evaluate on a risk basis the universe of functional areas, functional areas and business processes at LACERA in order to develop a right-sized risk-based audit plan. Next slide. The audit planning development process with the 3 pillars on the left side is the process that internal audit performs to develop our risk-based annual audit plan. The process to the right, the audit plan execution process, Ms. Collins of Internal Audit provided the ACRE committee with a more detailed discussion of this back at the March meeting. Gabe, let's skip to slide 21 now. So in March, we obtained approval from the committee for our annual internal audit budget based on a framework of the internal audit plan. Today, we are kicking off the annual risk assessment process, which is the process that we perform annually to help us in developing that audit plan. I talked earlier about how internal audit provides that third line assurance, and also that it's impractical for us to audit everything all the time. Key is to develop a right-sized process to ensure that audit plan covers the right risks at the right frequency of time. There has been some discussion today, and I think back in March too, about revising I think Ms. Logan talked about that in the 3-year roadmap, about revising our risk assessment process. And it's also, in fact, one of our divisional goals this year. So when we talk about revising the risk assessment process, what are we talking about? I think this goal will probably, I believe on the 3-year roadmap, it extends all the way through 2028. So it's going to be a continual process of revision. But I think what's key is ensuring that we have a complete audit universe. That is, does our audit universe cover all the areas of risk in the organization? If we're providing assurance to the committee and the boards that things are being done right in the organization, we need to ensure that we fully understand and cover all of the risk, that the risk universe is complete. We need to ensure that we're applying the right objective lens to determine the focus and frequency of these audits. Criteria that we consider include the length of time since the last audit, the results of prior audits or audits performed by external audit firms, changes in operations that have occurred, incidents that have occurred, the amount of financial or headline risk exposure, whether there have been significant changes recently to policies, procedures, technology, or staff turnover in critical functions, whether there have been any incidents or issues that have arisen that might indicate a heightened risk, and reports from other areas of the organization, such as the legal office, ethics and compliance, quality assurance, or our external financial or other third-party auditors, and whether the function is part of a general area of risk or concern amongst peers or in general. Examples of this, heightened risk areas that we need to pay attention to include cybersecurity, member data protection, privacy, etc. Also, in considering revising our risk assessment processes, are we using the right tools to perform and maintain the risk assessment? Currently, we're looking at making better use of our teammate audit software to assist us in this effort. And lastly, are we considering and taking advantage of the aligned assurance that we can rely on that is provided by external auditors or consultants and other areas of the organization, such as quality assurance, the benefit protection unit, and of course, as has been discussed today, also the ethics and compliance function that can provide us and help us tailor and right-size our audit plans so we're not duplicating effort. So after kicking off this risk assessment process today, I will be forwarding to the committee a survey to get your input. You can reply to those surveys anonymously and provide your thoughts and input. That's going to help us also make sure that we have the complete audit universe. We'll be surveying and meeting with the executive team We'll be serving division management, and I think Mr. Rice talked about this yesterday at the JOGC, that we will be collaborating with the ethics and compliance team to go through our annual survey questionnaire and add additional questions from a compliance standpoint. We have some on there, but I believe they have a number of other ones. And we'll be serving the division managers. Once we get their questionnaires back, we'll be meeting with them to further discuss areas of concern. And one of the things I want to do too is talk to them about our audit risk universes and make sure that and that's part of the discussion with everybody, is to ensure that our risk universes are complete. At the conclusion of the risk assessment process, we'll be developing our draft audit plan for next year and bringing it back to the committee at your June meeting for your further consideration and input. I think it's critical, your fiduciary duty on the ACA committee, to ensure that risk assessment and the audit plan presented covers the areas of concern that you have. Upon approval of that, we will be taking that, we'll be starting work on the audit plan in fiscal year 2026. I think the remaining slides I have go to the next slide, Gabe. Well, that's just a snippet of our questionnaire that I just discussed. Next slide. These are some of the top risks when we talk about external sources of risk and outside factors. Many of the organizations, the IAA, the risk management organizations, evaluate risk, and these are some of the top risks that we see, not only in the public pension fund world, but throughout organizations: cybersecurity, human capital. We've talked extensively about that today in the prior item, but organizational governance, data privacy, culture, et cetera. And I think the next slide shows how we've addressed some of those heightened, well-known and understood risks in our current audit plan, and we'll continue to do so in the audit plan that we bring forward to you for consideration at your June meeting. So with that, I believe we're at the end of the presentation, and I will stand for any questions you may have.
Any questions?
I have some anecdotal tethering that I'd like to bring forward. I think this is great. I mean, for knowledge, it's like you said, if you can't audit everything. I mean, it's Sisyphean. You don't have the staff to do it. Not to mention, it would slow everything to a grinding halt, right? So this focused risk assessment, and I love understanding it, and the relationship between what your group does and the consultants and the financial team, legal, everything. And we have in the fire service probability of ignition, and that's how likely is an ember going to start a spot fire, right? So if the probability of ignition is 100%, that means 10 out of 10 embers will light a spot outside of the control line. But you have to have three things present, which is an ember source, an ember receptor, and a transport system. So if you have 100% probability of ignition in a grass crop, great receptor bed, not really a good ember source, right? So that probability of ignition at 100% really, it's just a number. It's just a quantified number. And so, I love that kind of longer OODA loop that you have here. And, so you can really give a focused assessment, because, when we talk about probability versus potential, right? And I used to tell this to my folks. There's potential for a 747 to come off the 5 Mile in Castaic, skip across the I-5 and go right through Colossus. But what is the probability of that happening, right? So there's potential for it. That's right in the flight path, but I don't mean to belabor. I'm very happy, and I just want to, for everybody listening, how confident I am in this relationship between departments for this risk management, and how crucial it is. And it all equals prudent risk assessment to identify problems and address them with focused people power, right? That maximizes the positive results. And the expansion of into the ACRE committee, I think, is great. And that's just going to, help streamline it, and then all the other things that you talked about. So thanks for the presentation. Thanks for entertaining. I always like inserting some fire behavior stuff with you guys. But yeah, I think it's really good. I mean, it really is a good plan, and I'm confident in it. And I know it transcends not only your department, but financial and legal and processing for membership and everything else. So thanks.
Thank you.
From all of us, thank you.
Thank you.
Ready to go to B? There you are.
Good morning, Chair Martin and trustees. This next presentation is the audit plan status report. And again, the intention here is to update you on the progress made in completing the audit plan. Along with your memo, you have attachment A, which is the entirety of our audit plan, being the 34 engagements. Next slide, please, Gabe. This is our dashboard. This is where we are at right now. The information on either side of the slide in both graphs is generally the same. I'm assuming it's a bit self-explanatory, but let me provide some color just in lieu. We're currently at a 56% completion rate. That takes into consideration the 6 completed projects, as well as the 13 continuous projects that we have performing. Additionally, we have 9 projects in progress. Right now, if we're to finish those 9 projects, excuse me, by the end of the year, we'll be at an 82% completion rate of the audit plan. This would exceed our minimum metric of completing 80% of the audit plan, which is our annual internal goal. But we're not necessarily patting ourselves on the back just yet, as we strive to undertake more engagements and complete more of the audit plan. Next slide, please. These are the 2 most recent projects we have completed. The Christinas gave us really wonderful and stellar presentations with regards to recruitment and hiring, as well as the 3-year roadmap. Next slide, please. These are the continuous and current audit engagements. A lot of times I breathe over these. I make a joke about how they're vampires or they're zombies because they never go away. But today I would like to highlight, there's really some important work that goes on here. If you look about halfway down, you'll see the oversight of the financial audit, and that's for fiscal year 24 and 25. We completed in December and brought to your committee the final audit materials for fiscal year 24. And in about 2 weeks, we'll be starting the fiscal year 2025 audit. I'd also like to point out the recommendation follow-up. This is an ongoing day-to-day, week-to-week, monthly process where we're looking to work with division managers to assure that the audit recommendations we made are implemented, not only implemented, but implemented as intended and functioning in order to provide the necessary controls. Next slide, please. So these are the current 9 projects that we have in progress. If you actually count them here, there's only 8, but if you look in the middle, you see the IT risk assessment and the NIST CSF review. When we did those, they were originally 2 separate projects, but we're performing them in conjunction as they are very closely related. I'd also like to highlight the expansion of the RFP audit pool. Ms. Collins is working on identifying more outside vendors to perform additional audits for us in order to leverage as many resources as we have. Next slide, please. So this is where in the organization we've spent our time. We've broke it out into 5 segments. And as you can see, the darker blue areas are the portions that we've completed, with the lighter blue areas are the items pending to start. And these numbers tie directly back to the 34 engagements in our audit plan. Next slide, please. And these are the 6 pending engagements that we have yet to start. We are looking to engage them in the very near future. And I will stress again that our goal is to complete as much of the audit plan as possible. So now we're at a perspective 82%. We want to do more. And I believe that's the next slide is just any questions you may have. Be more than happy to address them.
Question. Prioritization. and how the 34 projects are prioritized. So you said you have the vampire projects, they always get done. And then you have this other group. Is that prioritized? And can we see simply the highest priority activities are completed first?
That is generally the approach that we want to take. But again, we have to take considerations of our auditees and their cycles of engagements that they're performing. So if we start our year in June, any engagements in FASD could be quite cumbersome. They're wrapping up their year end, they're getting prepared for the upcoming audit. And so we may pull back a little bit in that area, even though the project may be high priority. We want to give our auditees a little bit of space to do their own work so that when we come to audit them, they do have the bandwidth and they do have the appetite to take on those audits. So we're always striving to complete the highest priority ones. That is generally the case, but there are times when we do have high priorities that may get pushed down the line and started on a later date and may roll into the next year. But we're always looking to complete all of those projects. If they don't happen within that fiscal year, particularly the high priority ones, they're absolutely rolling over into the next audit plan. And we will make that very transparent to you when we bring forward the new audit plan, if that is the case.
We sit down at the beginning of each year and go through the audit plan before July 1st and take a look at the proposed plan and put the audits into the different quarters and give consideration to some of the stuff that Mr. Amick just talked about, the capacity of the divisions for what work's being done, and certainly consider priority. Sometimes things rise to the top because there's been an incident or a fire that requires that we look at it now.
But your goal is still to complete the highest priority items in your plan for that year.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. Quick question. So on the status report, do we also look into the implementation of the previous year's recommendation, see how
Yes.
far they're implemented?
Yes. That's part of our record follow-up. That was on the 13 continuous projects. So we're always looking to implement. We're always working with our auditees to implement those assurance recommendations. Not only are we working with them, but internal audit are bringing to this committee at quarterly a record follow-up report that shows all the outstanding recommendations, the status that they're currently in, how long they've been outstanding, and what our estimated completion rate is for those. And that is in your package today.
Among the list, right, of the continual projects, is there any particular item that stand out in the implementation phase you face challenge and persistently there?
Gabe, would you mind going back to that slide with the 13? Here we go. I personally work on the financial audit, and that is a very large undertaking for the entirety of the organization, as well as myself. But again, your question with regards to, can you rephrase the question one more time if you don't mind?
Among this list, right, I'm just want to understand, right, do you have challenge in a particular item that's really persistent that you cannot implement over time?
That necessarily hasn't been the case. Some of these projects here don't necessarily end up in any type of implementation. So again, if we do have assurance recommendations, we're always looking to implement them in a timely manner. And if we don't, we bring them to this committee for your attention.
You'll see on the follow-up report that will be presented subsequently that there are some, that there are challenges sometimes in getting recommendations implemented. And we've put a timeline on there from the date of the report, and we have some that are 500 days since the date of the report, because there is capacity issues, or sometimes it's timing issues with waiting for new systems to be developed or new software to come into, so it's definitely a constant issue that we face and challenge. I think that management and the executive office is very supportive of trying to drive. And that's an important role of the committee too, is to take a look at these and to hold management accountable and to question, are these risks that we can accept? Are these really, are we exposed here if these aren't implemented? So there's a challenge sometimes.
My apology, I think I mixed up the report. I thought I saw something on that area.
Yeah.
And it's not in this report, other report.
Right.
But thank you
Yeah,
for
sure.
discussion.
Any additional questions? All right. Well, thank you so much for the time.
Hey, good morning, Chair Martin, and also to the trustees. So there's two topics I'm going to cover for this agenda item. I'll first provide an update on our hotline cases, and then I have a short presentation on a relaunch of our Ethics Hotline. So starting out with our hotline cases. In accordance with your charter, the committee reviews a summary of hotline cases at least quarterly. So the last time we did this was at your December meeting. And since then, we've had 3 cases. 2 of them are still pending investigation, and then we have 1 that was closed this month. So for those 2 that are still outstanding, we're anticipating that the investigations will be completed by next month. And I will provide an update to you at the June meeting on those cases as well. Included in your materials on the first page of the memorandum is a summary of those cases. Okay. So unless there are any questions regarding the cases, the hotline report, I'll proceed with the presentation.
I have a question.
Okay.
The one that's closed, can you tell us if that was substantiated or not substantiated?
It was not substantiated. What we find is that sometimes a reporter will they won't provide enough information.
Yeah.
We do have a process where if we need some information, we do include in their account that we are asking for additional information in order to complete and fully understand the problem. And in this situation, the reporter did not check back on the account, and we did not receive any additional information. We do an assessment and sort of a overall investigation to find out if there are any issues that need to be addressed. In this situation, it wasn't something of that nature, and so we were able to just go ahead and close it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great.
Ms. Mee.
On the report, I see 3 months report. I'm curious about the trend that we're observing in the hotline report in the recent couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Is it trending up, trending down? Any observation there?
It's about the same, and usually on about a yearly or annual basis, we do provide a committee with an annual report of all of the different types and categories of the cases, and it's pretty much steady. We actually haven't had any cases for quite a while. And I want to say that part of our rebranding and the relaunch of the hotline did spark some interest. It did bring some more awareness. So we did get some additional cases. So it's not like there's a lot of cases coming in, but it's maybe about 5 to 6 cases per year.
I see. The reason I'm asking is that sometimes we don't get a lot of report. It could be two reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
One reason is that we are doing amazing, nothing to report. Everybody's so happy, right? That's a perfect word. And the other side could be potentially employees don't feel the channel is safe, don't trust it, and or maybe they report in the past it didn't feel like it was taken seriously and addressed, right? So that's the other extreme that you don't get, reports. So I think it would be important when we monitor those reports, right? Have an understanding, where we're at. And then this rebranding, I'm excited to see. I'm hoping, like you say, this re-energize this whole channel and make hopefully employee feel safe, secure, and then motivate to report when they need to report. And then of course this committee and then the staff would committed to take it seriously in our report.
And keep in mind that this is only one platform that's available to staff. So of course, you know, at LACERA, we do have an open door, and we do encourage individuals to go to management or to the appropriate offices as well when they do have an issue. So there may be some other reporting and may be done through HR, and that is not included in the hotline report too. So there are different avenues that employee can make a report.
So
as
the
well.
management issue or reports will be go to HR and
Yeah.
the training committee.
Yeah, if they go through there.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so moving on to the relaunch. Over the past years, there's been a lot of discussion regarding LACERA's commitment to fostering a positive culture and upholding our core values. So when we look at our values, we have key principles such as transparency, accountability, and integrity. To support this commitment, LACERA maintains an ethics hotline, and we've had our hotline for about 6 years. This is one channel, as I just mentioned, for staff to report issues of misconduct in a confidential and anonymous setting. It's been several years since we last provided an update to staff about the hotline system. And with all the discussion regarding culture and values, we felt that this was a good opportunity and time to bring staff's awareness of this program. So this past February was the relaunch of the Ethics Hotline, along with some rebranding, and I'll highlight some of the key points. Gabe, can you go to slide 3? So let me start by saying this was a collective effort with internal audit, the legal office's ethics and compliance function, and communication division. And the team put in a lot of time working on the messaging that would be most effective in drawing awareness. We collaborated on refining the content included in the materials. We wanted to highlight LACERA's commitment to transparency, accountability, and also our ethical values. And we also wanted to emphasize that this is an anonymous reporting system. And then one more important point is that we wanted to also highlight that LACERA maintains a strict policy on non-retaliation to protect employees when reporting issues. On this next slide, you'll see the rebranding of the materials. So here is a good illustration of the rebranding that we did. As you can see, we added some brighter colors, a clearer description of the reporting items. And one of the key highlights is that we added the tagline, "Speak Up." Again, we wanted to emphasize that we have a culture of open transparency. And we wanted to encourage staff to speak up when they see issues that fall below LACERA's standards or violates our policies and procedures. Next slide. So as part of our new campaign, we wanted to hit all avenues of communication. On the day of the relaunch, the executive office issued an email to all staff regarding the relaunch of our hotline and the importance of the program. We had new brochures as well. And at your desk is our new brochure. You see our tagline, "Speak Up" in it. We also gave out these little stress balls, again, our tagline, and it shows where they can access the system. I was hoping to have one for all of you, but they were pretty popular, so we ran out of those.
I didn't get one. I'm very stressed still.
I need 2 of them, please.
And then we added a link on the LACERA Connect, which allows easy access to the hotline reporting system as seen on this slide. And that's just one way that they can make a report. They can go online, or else there is a phone number they can call as well. In conclusion, the relaunch was, I like to say it was successful, evidenced by a slight increase in reporting, which indicates greater awareness of our hotline. And lastly, I want to highlight the collaborative effort that made this possible with the team from internal audit, ethics and compliance, and also the communication division. And I emphasize again, collaboration. We've been talking a lot about our values, and this project exemplifies the positive outcomes that can occur when following our core values as well. So this completes my presentation. If there are any questions, I can address those at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're at the for information only, and you pulled
Yes. Thank
one.
you.
Ms. Barrett is here to discuss. Yep.
Thanks, Allison. Thank you, Trustee Martin. Chair Martin, excuse me, and trustees. After a couple questions yesterday at the JOGC, we thought we would give you a verbal update on the 10-page report. I trust that you all read it, but we just wanted to keep ethics and compliance in the forefront of your mind, as it is in mine at all times. Since we last met, two of our Ethics and Compliance Committee members, Roberta Van Noordrijk and myself, completed the Society of Corporate Compliance and Ethics Academy, earned the requisite 25 education hours, completed the Certified Compliance and Ethics Professional exam, and we are both now certified. This is the recognized certification in the compliance world. Maintaining certification requires 40 hours of continuing education units every 2 years. Fun fact, the California bar only requires 25 hours every 3 years. The real point being is that what we learn, you will learn, supporting the continuous learners strategy that Ms. Logan addressed earlier. Next month, the Ethics and Compliance Committee will have a 2-hour training on its critical role supporting the implementation and operation of the Ethics and Compliance Program. It's May 28th, if you happen to be in the area, starting at 9 a.m. in this room. Training will be conducted by LACERA's Ethics and Compliance Consultant, Rebecca Walker, who you have seen speak before you on occasion. I want to thank you again for attending the lengthy and robust orientation last month. Your next training will be on the new Code of Ethical Conduct, which is coming soon. As for the code, we currently have a working draft of the revised code, and we're regularly meeting with communications at this point regarding the design, and they are preparing a mock-up of the introduction section that we will be rolling out to various focus groups. We're aiming to present a fully redrafted and redesigned code at the June meeting for your input, August at the latest. Turning to policy management, at the end of your report, you will see the 22 policies, procedures, and charters completed or updated since March of 2024. Meanwhile, LACERA's in-house policy management solution, Compass, is fully operational, and it will be presented to ACRE by our Compass development team later this year. And the other big news in policy management is that we have now formed an ethics and compliance policy subcommittee dedicated to solely reviewing organization-wide policies to streamline the policy development and review process, and to then allow for the larger Ethics and Compliance Committee to focus on the other ethics and compliance program activities such as risk assessment, which you've heard a lot about this morning. Ethics and Compliance will join internal audit on its yearly risk assessment process to leverage those resources that are already in place prior to our hiring of the CECO. We actually have a meeting tomorrow, Richard. And when the Ethics and Compliance Office is fully staffed and operational, the goal, as everyone has said this morning, is aligned assurance to bridge control gaps, to combine our resources, and to minimize management assessment fatigue. In June, 3 of our Ethics and Compliance Committee members, Ms. Van Noordrijk, myself, and Mr. Rice, will attend a 2-day compliance risk assessment and management workshop, also with the Society of Corporate Compliance and Ethics. As for our baseline ethics and compliance culture survey, HR, the Executive Office, Internal Audit, and Legal, we're currently meeting and collaborating to draft a baseline culture survey. And those surveys will be conducted according to employees' organizational functions, so we can analyze the different perspectives within the organization. There will also be specific questions that are ethics and compliance focused, such as speak up culture, so we can assess whether our employees are truly aware of the channels to report any misconduct or concerns, and also that they feel safe doing so. We're aiming to conduct this survey by the end of summer, with results to be discussed and workshopped at our November management offsite and then presented to the ACRE at one of its winter meetings. And lastly, the class specifications and budget. As you know, the ACRE approved the CECO and deputy class specs, as well as the 2025-2026 ethics and compliance budget. Yesterday, the JOGC approved the class specs and forwarded them to the joint boards. The ethics and compliance budget, meanwhile, will be included at the annual administrative budget presented to both boards in May, which I think is in 2 weeks at their meetings. And that's about it. Legal will continue to provide program updates at your regularly scheduled meetings. Of course, if there are any mission critical risks that arise, we will come to you immediately. I welcome any questions, whether now or see me after for my card and email. Thank you.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
On to recommendation follow-up report.
Me? Good morning, Chair Martin and trustees. Our recommendation follow-up covers the activity period from November 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2025. I don't have a presentation at this time, but I wanted to highlight the key points of this memo. Chris, could you please go to page 2 of the memo? In the chart at the top of the page, highlighted in blue, you can see that as of the last reporting period, 22 recommendations were in progress as of 11/1/2024. 1 recommendation was added. 4 recommendations were implemented. The details of these 4 are listed in the middle section of this page. 19 recommendations are in progress. Of these 19 recommendations, 5 are pending audit verification, in which management had completed their implementation. We just need to validate these 5 recommendations, which will then bring our in progress down to 14 recommendations. The chart on the lower left shows the outstanding recommendations by risk rating. Here you can see the individual divisions and combined divisions and associated levels of risk ratings, with the red color representing high and the yellow representing medium. The chart on the lower right shows the aging of outstanding recommendations. Here you can see we have 1 recommendation less than 6 months old, 11 recommendations between 6 and 12 months, 5 recommendations between 12 and 24 months, and 2 recommendations between 24 and 36 months. Chris, could you please go to slide 3? Here you can see on this attachment A.1 that we've included more relevant information to add more clarity and transparency. We have included the number of extensions for each recommendation and the number of days outstanding since the audit report date. Each of these outstanding recommendations have been assigned to division management, and in some cases, implementation will require collaboration between multiple divisions. I wanted to thank the division management for their continued support in addressing outstanding recommendations, and staffer and management are here to answer any questions that you may have. Thanks.
Thank you. I think this is great that you're tracking it.
Yeah.
I do have a question about F3. They've had 5 extensions and almost 600 days, and it's about, looks like it's about the credit cards, deactivating credit cards, and there's no policy. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay, so if you could explain to me, if this is just a policy issue, how come it's still outstanding?
So part of the policy thing is it goes through that ethics and compliance. There's the committee that things go through. So it's a timing. You know, we should get these policies updated more frequently. I think anticipating at the division level that when the policies are going to be up for revision and taking advantage of that, I think that's something we're trying to make sure that we really enforce, is that think about those policies. But I can't speak to the delays on this specifically.
With this one, because I was just looking at it the other day, they are in the process of having their policy updated and reviewed. We now have a process where it goes through our Policy and Procedures Committee. There have been a lot of movement towards this policy. They have provided their updated policy to the committee, but it's gone through several different reiterations as well. And so they have submitted them. They received comments on some additional updates they need to make to their policy. Then they have to resubmit it to the committee. So there is a timing involved as well, but this is a recommendation that they are currently moving on and progressing with.
Okay, can you tell me that I would like to know the timeline on this one particularly, because I have a feeling that it's a little bit more than the policy taking time to go through the process. And if that's so, that's okay. I think we should just figure out how to plug that hole. So I'd like to know that. And I'm assuming the rest of them you're following up on. And I like this, it's great. You know, I don't want you guys to feel like, oh darn, you know, look at, you know, she's questioning one or two of them. If you have one issue, this is not, you know, huge in my mind. I just think it's great that you're tracking it and you're being transparent. I just would like a little bit more information about this one.
Okay, I'm not sure if Ted is here. Oh, he is. Maybe he can provide some more insight into it.
There we go. Good morning, Chair Martin, trustees of the ACRE Committee. My name is Ted Granger. I'm the Chief Financial Officer here at LACERA. To get right to the point, we did implement a communication stream with Human Resources to deactivate credit cards. So we have a much better, robust, and that was actually done quite a few months ago. So from my perspective, the real issue here was implementing the control. And we did get that done. That's been in place for some time. The secondary issue was upping the policy. That took a lot longer than we thought. My team is a little bit fresh or green when it comes to policy writing, especially given that we established the Ethics and Compliance Committee, and we were tasked with establishing the new policy in compliance with their policy formatting. And so we went through that process, going through the committee, setting up the policy within compliance with that particular document. It took a couple of rounds to go through sort of that review. And then once we got to a good point on the policy itself, we decided to develop some procedures. Those procedures are centered around going into Bank of America Works, which is the credit card system. So we developed those as well. Policy and procedures are done. What we're going to do in the next 2 weeks or so is actually train the cardholders, about 25, 26 of them, as well as the admin people who support the cardholders. So I really feel like we're at the finish line, and I really feel like the policy development and the review and that process was a little bit new to us, and it took a lot longer from our perspective in terms of going through the committee and getting all of those updates and establishing those procedures as well at the end. So kind of a little bit longer process than we anticipated.
Yeah, so I would still like this section here, audit of the corporate credit cards, the timelines. I'd like to see some timelines.
Okay.
On that.
Okay, yeah, I don't have the timeline in front of me.
No, you can do it later.
For
No big
future
deal.
reporting.
Yeah.
No big deal, yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm good.
you said that the policy has already been being implemented and the procedures are being almost completed.
Correct.
So one milestone is the policy was already completed. Does that show up here that you did develop?
The action of actually disabling those cards, that's being done. The policy itself is still in the pipeline to get the policies being approved. Right.
Because you're writing policy, writing procedures.
Right. Yeah. So and that's a great point, Trustee Moore. And I want to make sure that's clear, because that was definitely something that came to my mind and was communicated to my team. And that is the essence of the audit is, what is the deficiency? What are we trying to address? We're trying to address an internal control, actions that the folks at LACERA internally take. So it was very important to me to make sure that my team developed that process, that control with HR. We got a hold of Carly and we said, hey, we need to be notified when folks are leaving or transferring divisions. We need to be notified and we need to be on that list so we can look and see if they have a credit card and we can immediately deactivate that card. So we can verify the dates on that, but that control was implemented, I want to say a month or two after the audit. We got on that list. We see who's leaving the organization. We are deactivating those cards. So from my perspective, that was the most important part of this particular audit recommendation. Not that the policy is not important, because it is, and not that the procedures aren't important, but that took us a lot longer to sort of formalize that, re-up the old policy and get that in place. So the policy's been approved. Procedures have been approved as of, I think, hopefully tomorrow. We're still getting a couple items of feedback in the training. But again, the control from my perspective has been fully implemented, and that is making sure people aren't leaving the organization with LACERA credit cards in their pocket. That's not happening.
Any other questions? Trustee Me?
Thank you. Just a comment. I really appreciate this discussion because we have really simple question in our mind. And I'm glad to see that actually, the implementation and what they go forward and what will appear on the paper here. So appreciate you taking the proactive, immediately implement the control, why the policy does take time to formalize it, right? So I was worried about that part. I didn't know the actual work, the control was implemented or not. I was worried about 1.5 years. Why we're addressing this? Did anyone leave the organization with the credit card, right? Is there any incident happened during this 1.5 year window? Sounds like no, you immediately worked on it, or have the control in place.
Right. There's also electronic measures that we can take. We can go on B of A Works and we can deactivate their corporate card immediately as soon as we get notice. So if Ted decides to leave the organization today, my corporate card could probably be deactivated in about 30 seconds, literally, on the system. But generally, what we found is people are very good about saying, we'll contact them. They'll say, oh, yeah, I have the corporate card. I'll surrender it. There's a whole process where we go through a destruction of that, a deactivation of the account, like I mentioned. So we feel like it's a pretty good process.
No instant in the past year and a half.
I'm sorry?
No instant in the past year and a half, right? Someone terminated with the credit card.
No incidences. We've had incidents where people have left and we've had to get a hold of them and say, hey, can you send it back to us? But again, account's been electronically deactivated. There was nothing they could do transaction wise, but no incidents that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Trustee Green?
Yeah, I'll try to be brief. You alluded to it, but I mean, looking at this risk assessment, rating and whatnot, there's a strong nexus to the HR component, right? I mean, it's coming in at half the time. You already said it. I mean, if someone leaves, you guys need to know about it. Policy can follow, but there should be just a standard operating procedure because, a lot of this stuff. There's only F5 F6 for inclusion of the policies, procedures, development per recommendation 1. But if you go F1, F2, F3, F4, a lot of stuff, it's pending. That looks like it's going to drop off pretty readily. But then when we get into 6 through 10, the offboarding process, notifying insurance managers, offboarding effort to incorporate, having them not have data access, all that stuff seems. I don't know. I mean, I don't mean to sound curt about it, but it seems like that might be something that should be a group email or something. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't mean to. I'm not trying to minimize it or anyway, but it seems like there's a nexus between the two. We're all hyper focused on this credit card thing. Like you said, it can just be a phone call, turn that thing off. But this offboarding here, there's a lot more facets to it that pose risk, like data, everything else. So, yeah, Laura, if you don't mind, thank you.
Through the chair, Trustee Green, you're correct. Really, one of the real highlights of this audit was that there were deficiencies in our offboarding process, and it was really, like most problems, a communication problem. So there was an email process that we were using. It's a very manual process, and it's very easy to leave somebody off or not they were sent, but they didn't necessarily pay attention or realize. So there is a process of communicating. We are working on automating that. Again, recall that all of us work together, and we need to have systems and resources and in support. So some of the technology we've been working on to ensure that we are well documenting and systematically documenting who is issued something like a credit card as part of their role in the organization, what the limits are on those, ensuring that we're following all of those procedures and processes. And then when those people either leave the organization or change roles, that was also something that was happening. So if someone changed a role, they were transferred from one role to another role or promoted, that was not necessarily being shared with the finance and accounting folks. So they had a credit card, they were still an employee. They shouldn't have had a credit card in that situation. That was one of the findings I think that we worked on. And I'm sorry, I don't remember all of the details of all of this, because this has been something we've been collaborating for some time. And it's really a collaboration between HR systems and financial and accounting services.
Thanks for expanding on it, but I do, this to me, this is a top-down thing. Executive board assistants and the system divisions for incorporate checklist, they're not going to pull someone's access without direction. That's a management issue. Yeah, but I see the correlation here, and hopefully the processes we talked about the other day with this. With using information technology, is this going to help reduce this? Is that potential? Are we hanging our hat on that, or is this something analog that we can do until that point to expedite?
So we have been doing, as you put it, analog approaches to address it on the short term, and we've also, while we have been implementing new systems and processes in place to automate it, so that we're not dependent. There were, to Ted's point, what controls do we have in place? So when it's a manual process, those controls don't really exist appropriately. People have responsibilities, but how do you ensure that happens? That's a challenge, other than by doing an audit, the continuous audit, follow up, and ensuring that the things we have promised, that they are have been done and that they are effective. We try some things sometimes and it's not always effective. And our colleagues in internal audit, when they do a follow-up audit, that helps us determine those kinds of things.
And has residency and transcends all of us when we're not here too.
Correct.
That's where the policy comes in, but yeah. Thank you for expanding on that.
Okay, so Larry.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge you made some substantial revisions to this report since we received it last. The committee received it last, and I think it's really great. My advice, though, for the committee would be on this report is to have a section in here where it says, you see status as in progress, right? And so you see the date of the report, you see what the finding was, and it appears to be in progress for a long period of time and that's the only status update that you get. But we could simply add another row in there that just says, here's the current status, whether it's management's assertion or not, right? And so management can just make an assertion. You just note that it's unverified, pending IA verification, right? Or those that you did verify, you can put what's the current status, and audits did verify it, right? And then that would give the committee, probably save most of the discussion that we just had, an update on what really is the current status and is it being addressed or not. So that would be my advice for the committee.
I agree with the recommendation. I sort of feel like the theme today is we want more information, and that fits right into it. That would be great.
I mean, it's a great job. I mean, it's really improved.
Right. But it's the communication to us, we can't see it.
And I think we were thinking along the same lines, and that's one reason why we took a look at our follow-up process and also the reporting and trying to make it so that we're providing more relevant information to you. And so this was sort of like the first phase of it. We are continuing to look at it. So second phase, we can definitely include a column or some additional information so you have a better understanding of the progress that's being made and the actions that have been taken as well.
I do have one question. So the extensions, is it up to the division? Like when I was an auditor, I'd call somebody and say, okay, you haven't followed up on your recommendations. Where are you at? Do you need another extension? Do they drive that date?
Well, our process is that on a monthly basis, if not sooner, we do update and we do follow up on all outstanding recommendations. So that's when we are communicating with the manager regarding the status of their recommendations and the progress that has been made. At that time, there is communication and discussions as far as, well, does it look like we're going to hit this target date or do we need some more time? And then they provide us sort of a justification. And then it goes through another process where the executive office, each of the assistant executive officers will review the request for an extension and approve it as well. And so that's the way that we sort of move through that process and making sure that.
Well, and I also think that when you have lots of extensions, that's a red flag too, because you're not estimating on your implementation appropriately if you have to keep having extensions. So that's another thing that was a red flag to me, but I think it would definitely help if we put some more information in here.
And we're also going to be looking at the way that we're describing or rating our recommendations in the future too, because sometimes we may have a recommendation, great for improvement, but initial estimate as far as the timing, maybe 3 months, and then we find later on, well, there's a new system or due to resources, it's going to take longer. So we're looking at how we can better report that as well.
Right. Thank you. I think we've got Trustee Rosen.
Really quick, because I know we're at the end of this and it might even be repetitive, but would it be terrible to consider when someone is offboarding, perhaps because there are different departments within the organization, to have the person that's leaving go to every single department to get signed off? And that way it's more, and then that way it's clear when they're actually leaving that they're cleared to move on.
Demobilization.
I think HR is going to speak to that.
To the chair, if I may respond. Well, so this has come up, and I think there are two sets of recommendations that are related, generally determination of access, right? The first one with FASD and the credit cards, and the second one, there's like a longer one that's related, an offshoot to the SOC audit. So what we've decided to do, we have a workflow built into ServiceNow. So ServiceNow is the platform used by systems initially to do ticketing. We've adopted an HR module in ServiceNow to handle workflows. And so we have an initial thing programmed, an initial workflow programmed right now. But what we've seen is that we need to have more detail in the workflow to effectively capture all of the tasks that are done by all of the divisions whenever someone is offboarding. So we are right now revising our workflow. There is a project manager assigned to it in systems. Right now, myself and Sami Vong, IT manager 2, are sitting on weekly meetings to make sure that our workflow is planned out correctly, and then we're going to program it. So that is actually one of the deadlines that's reflected. I can't tell you what page at this moment, and I think that the deadline is the end of the year, 12/31/25. So with the revision and the updates to that, every division that has a task to do is captured. It is automated, because one of the things that technology is really good at is doing the same thing over and over and over. Humans tend to forget if it's in the workflow. The notices are issued and the tasks are visible to all who participate, and it makes it easier to follow up and make sure that all the things are followed through before the recorded end date. So we are working towards that actively right now.
Even if it's done, like, for example, if the person knows it's the last day, then it has to, it's their responsibility, I mean, pretty much, to get Otherwise, I don't know if you guys have a badge system or how it works, but they would have to relinquish their badge that day.
Absolutely. All of those things are in there. We collect badges. We used to have parking passes. Now we're getting the credit cards. Everything that they have been issued is reflected on all the things that we need to collect so that we know what to collect when we're having that exit meeting. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
So in that exit meeting, are you collecting the credit card?
In the next meeting? Exit meeting, sorry.
Yeah.
So going forward, it can either be collected by HR or the supervisor when they're collecting the rest of the equipment. So same thing with the laptop, if they've been issued.
That gets confusing though. You know what I mean? Because I gave it to the supervisor. You think I gave it to the supervisor. I really didn't. I don't know how you.
And that's why they check off on the list.
So the electronic list?
Electronic list. Everything that the person has been issued is right there. And the person who collects it has to verify. And it's updated real time.
Okay, cool.
Fantastic.
There was the one issue that the one thing that was the staffing report. I just wanted to, sorry if I may, Madam Chair. My staffing report is really great news this time. You know, we had 3 vacant budgeted positions. We filled 2 of those positions, and I'd like to take just a couple minutes to introduce the 2 new staff that we have, Christian Velasco and Delfino Aguilar, and I'm gonna let each of them come up and just introduce themselves. And then we're also in the process of hiring in the hiring process for the 1 vacant internal auditor position. And we're on the 2nd interview round right now. So anticipate having that position filled before the end of the fiscal year. So Delfino Aguilar, who recently, what's been 2 months now, guys? Or yeah, it's crazy. Time flies, huh?
It's good. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Good morning, Chair and trustees. My name is Chris Velasco. So a little bit about me. I have about 19 years of attestation and audit experience. My most recent experience is actually in financial institutions. That's been since 2020. I'm excited to be here. I am also excited to kind of work towards, as Mrs. Logan's roadmap puts it, just being a trusted advisor and also providing just more guidance towards aiding LACERA's mission.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, good morning, Chair Martin and trustees. It's a pleasure speaking to you in person for the very first time. A little nerve-wracking, but I'll get used to it in the future, I'm sure. So as our chief mentioned, my name is Delfino Aguilar. I'm one of the new senior internal auditors. A little background about myself. I was working for the state of California for a bit over 10 years. I started off as a tax auditor where I conducted sales and use tax audits for a variety of businesses throughout Southern California. The majority of my career in the state, however, was as a regulator. Where I earned my CPA license. I conducted exams for state-chartered financial institutions where I assessed their loan portfolios, investments, internal controls and governance to assess their safety and soundness. My most recent experience before coming to LACERA was with America Honda Finance, where I was part of the compliance department there, and I was leading the exams and audits team there for the corporation. So as a longtime civil servant and a LA native, I'm very excited to be part of LACERA, where I can contribute to its success and provide all those wonderful benefits to the hardworking LA County employees.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. All
Thank
right.
you both.
Thank you.
Appreciate you having me on board.
Anything for the good of the order before we adjourn? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Recording stopped.